never seen, never touched. And that's like there's so much that is driving us apart right now on this planet. And then there's this possibility in technology to bring us together, but it often feels like so superficial or so that it doesn't have enough heart and soul. And I think that the potential of really warming up these airwaves, warming up this space through our very human connection it has an incredible potential for what we can make possible as human beings at this point in time. So today we're going to do basically an introduction to emergent dialogue, and we're going to start by speaking about what is emergence and what does emergence mean in dialogue. And then we're going to go into these three facets of emergent dialogue, which presence, group coherence, and creative friction. And we think that will probably take about an hour. And then after that, we're going to engage you during that time. So it's not just, you're not going to be just passively sitting. And then we'll take questions and see where we go with the questions and see how long we go with that. And as everyone I'm sure is aware, this is an introduction to a course that Thomas and I are offering, a 3-month course on emergent dialogue essentials that will take what we're speaking about today and give you practice and more experience with how to support and help catalyze emergence in dialogue. So
yeah, and maybe that's a good starting point to talk about emergence. And I would like to bring all of our attention to the fact what I just mentioned before, that we are really right now coming together in one virtual room, connected via computer, internet, and seeing each other face to face on the screen. And if we do pay attention to the degree that we really allow to arrive here, to see each other, and to see that we are meeting, there is a meeting space in consciousness emerging between us. Every single one of us, just 10 minutes ago, came from somewhere else. So whatever you did before, and you were in a certain space with people or on your own, in nature, in house, and you made the decision to come here. And here we are. And like in any real encounter, as soon as relationship happens, that means as soon as we open up to relationship, something emerges that is different for every single one of us, and that's different for all of us. And to kind of be aware of this difference is the emergence of something. It's the emergence of an intersubjective space that we start to share with each other, and that we share with each other via conversation, via seeing each other. But to be aware that just in the coming together, something emerges that is sensible. It's not just an idea of something, it's sensible for every single one of us. Is better than any idea of what emergence is to really, I think, come together in what emergent dialogue could be about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because emergence is quite a buzzword at these days. It's a word that I think biologists have been using in the last, I guess, 15 years to describe the surprising and miraculous almost capacity of life to produce new wholes out of parts. That it's the root of autopoiesis or self-organizing. It's the It's been the process by which the cosmos has been created for billions of years. So it is that emergence is the creative, the creative workings of the cosmos and of biology, but even bigger than that. And meaning, for example, if you think, it's often hard for us to recognize how surprising the world that we're in is. If you think back to the beginning, however that started, whatever was the initiation of this whole thing that we're part of, that there was that they know that we went from energy to some form of matter. That itself was not foreseeable from the standpoint of energy. When the two gases, hydrogen and oxygen, combined and created a completely different kind of substance, water, that's emergence. It's not, you can't say, oh, we're going to create water and we know what that is from the point of view of being a gas. But something new happens. Something new is brought into existence. Now, here we are, we're human beings. We're not going to turn into, we were talking today about flying. We're not going to become flying creatures probably anytime soon. That's not something that we can expect in terms of emergence. But so we are human beings who have life experiences, conditioned responses to life. We've grown up in different cultures. We're sharing one language. At this point, it happens to be English. So what emergence is between people happens in communication. And that's what an emergent dialogue is the arising of potential and understanding that one individual couldn't hold or come up with themselves. It's again the phrase that what is able to be created in the whole is greater than what any individual or even all the individuals added together could come up with. There's an extra something that happens.
Yeah, in fact, that is maybe also the most simple way to really get an understanding of what emergence is. The simple understanding that the whole is bigger than the sum of the parts. But then we also have to have an understanding what is a whole. Because if you just put atoms next to each other, they just stay atoms. But in the moment they relate to each other, they become a molecule. And a molecule is something different than just atoms. The same with molecules and cells, the same with cells or single cell creature and the body, and the same with us humans. And when we again bring this to this moment here together on screen, in the moment we start to relate to each other as whatever kind of whole. It's more than any single one of us and all together as parts can be. There's something that comes from the whole itself. The whole itself brings its own gestalt, and we're in the beginning of something, and we'll find out how far we can go in a short introduction like today. But in the way we relate, not just as individual separate parts, but as a whole, we give the whole a chance to form its own gestalt. And this is the exciting thing about coming together in emergence.
And I think that it is, and again, to use the word again, it is an emerging capacity that we have as human beings right now, as human beings who have individuated and are, as you're saying, are beginning to intuit, and through spiritual practices, through self-development, we are learning to be able to hold the whole in our awareness more. Even if you just think for a second about the planet, we all can come up with a sense of the whole that we're each on right now, and that together, all of us spanning this globe are creating a networked whole. And it's that intuition of wholeness that is something that more and more individuals are able to access. And what happens then if we communicate out of our understanding of wholeness and explore our differences from that place of wholeness? So that's in very short work. That's sort of an introduction to emergence, and then why dialogue is so important for human emergence. Because this is how, through our being human, that emergence will take place. And so to move into these three facets of emergent dialogue, and there aren't just three. There are many ways to cut into this this topic, but these three are, I think, are ones that are graspable and powerful. So the first one is presence, and I think Thomas was evoking presence in the beginning of our session right now, to bring us to this moment, to bring us here, and recognizing that we are with each other, actually. That it's not simply that I'm seeing heads on a screen or an image far at arm's length, but that I am in your space and you are in mine. And we're all creating something at this moment that is that we can be present to.
And again, presence is something very simple, as we all know. It is just being here. And as probably we all know, although it's very simple, it's also very easy to miss. We can be here and be, in fact, somewhere completely different with where I've been just before, where I want to go, where my expectations are, where my thoughts are. And a lot of consciousness practice, like meditation, is a practice of arriving in the presence. So emergent dialogue only can unfold its power when we allow to really arrive in the shared moment, which means to be awake to each other. And that's something that is particular happening in the course of a dialogue, when we will open up the dialogue afterwards for all of us, where something can go around the circle, voice by voice by voice by voice. And none of us is kind of just bringing his whatever absent reality into this shared moment, or is it bringing it only in a way into this present moment that respects that we are together here in something right now. And that takes a lot of attention, because I have to be aware of you to really respect that we are sharing something that I don't know really what it is. None of us had really an idea who will show up in this course right now. I had no idea. Elizabeth has no idea. So we bang, it's 6 o'clock here, Frankfurt time. We open our screen, we see your faces. It's a completely new situation that is independent of my expectations what this situation would bring. But this is it. Am I ready to respond to the reality that we are here together? I see your faces, and some of you are smiling, some of you have a thoughtful thinking. I at least assume, looking to you here, seeing you listening. If this is a projection or not, I don't know, but it's my assumption that I see you listening. And there's something to respond to. If there would be a situation where I feel everyone is doing something different, I would have to respond to this. So to allow oneself to really pay attention what is emerging in a shared present moment is a skill that is on one hand simple, and on the other hand not easy, because one thing that it really needs, and it's something one maybe wouldn't think first. It needs humility, because particular Elizabeth and I, we come here as presenters. We come with some expectations, and we think that there's some expectations on us. But what we really want to be here for is the shared reality of our dialogue opening. So can I be here in a way where I don't serve my expectations, but serve the reality that I am aware of that is emerging between us? Am I attentive enough right now to your faces and then to your voices that this, what can happen between us, is not just something that I want to bring into the situation, but that the present situation is something that I really want to be a servant of allowing to emerge as us. And that is something that is part of, as we understand it, the skill of learning emergent dialogues.
Mm-hmm. I think you said the present situation. So we mean presence by one's own awareness, one's presence at the moment to each other, and the present situation. And this is actually a tricky one in dialogue, and particularly in working with other people. And I'm sure that you've all had this experience. You have a group, you want something to happen in between people in the group, and your expectation of what it should be like and what should happen and what you really want to have happen ends up taking you from being present to some other place. And so one being present to the situation as it is, as it's happening, as it's unfolding, that is the only place that emergence will happen. It doesn't happen in your expectations that are or not being met. It happens literally between us as we are each present to this moment and the next moment, and how that is creating something between us, creating a deeper appreciation of the fact that we are together in something.
And it has to be said, it's more difficult on screen than in the physical room. Mm-hmm. Because in the physical room, I think every one of us also knows that you are aware of a certain atmosphere that is arising in the room, just by coming together. Even like a situation like this, Liz and I give a longer introduction. So we're talking for a longer time, and hopefully they will change. And afterwards we will have more dialogue and intercourse. But even if you give an introduction like that, it's easier in a physical space to feel out the room, of the present in the room, and respond to the room. And it takes more attention to respond to something that is mediated by a screen. But I'm deeply convinced it's possible.
And I think that actually having it's interesting, because I think that having having to hone one's sensibilities even more finely is actually very good training.
Yeah.
Because I think that there are ways that we make assumptions about being together, face to face, human to human, that we are connecting in ways that we may actually also be really dealing with our own screen. Mm-hmm. that we're putting up between ourselves and other people. And here you have this already strange situation, but really working it and engaging with it opens up, develops one's capacity for sensing, which is also what presence is about. It's developing one's and cultivating one's capacity to sense into an intersubjective reality, that which is held and growing and changing and moving between us.
Yeah, because I think we all know the experience when we come together in a circle in a room and we start to talk, and someone is just he sticks out like a sore thumb, or as we say in English language.
We do.
Yes, you do. That someone, out of whatever reason, he hasn't arrived or doesn't want to be in a kind of interrelationship where he's part of the whole. And this person also can be me, by the way. That's always good to have.
That's the humility part.
That's the humility part, and that's also the one to maybe pay most attention to, because it's the most difficult to see. It's easier to see if someone else is kind of really not, what is he doing? But if it's yourself, it's usually more difficult to be aware of this. But to the degree that we really train our sensitivity to the whole that we are, there's a sensitivity where we at least recognize when we are out of sync or out of this wholeness and respond to that, which is, again, it's an organic process. There's nothing has to be perfect here. In fact, by recognizing, wait a moment, I'm a little out of sync here, I'm a little not, is the moment to respond to. And it's always going back and forth. And this dynamic back and forth is what's creating the living reality between us. So it's no need for perfection, but the longing for this perfection point is a very wholesome one.
Right. Yeah, I think that you can hear in what we're saying in terms of one's recognition of the whole that's emerging between us, that we're talking about a perception that is coming from a place of coherence, a place of wholeness, which is what we were saying before. That the second facet of emergent dialogue is this coherence, is a coherence in the group. And that is what the group is working toward, is a greater and deeper coherence. And that and coherence is a recognition of wholeness between us. That regardless of where we each are in relationship to what's being spoken about, that we also form a whole. And as with presence, this is something that is the perception of wholeness is something that we can cultivate, because it takes us out of ourselves, literally, out of our focus on our individual experience, our individual point of view. It allows us to hold that, but within a different whole, in a different context.
And the most easy form or level of coherence to recognize is the coherence in content.
Mm-hmm.
Basically,
because there are multiple levels.
There are multiple levels of coherence, and we should talk about that. And I start with the content because it's really the most easy to see and recognize, because it's very obvious when everyone starts to talk about something, and the next talks about something completely different, and the third one talks about something completely different, and it's completely not related to each other, because I have no idea what you're talking about. In fact, I'm not interested in what you're talking about. I just want to bring in what I want to talk about. The next one does the same. That's obviously the complete lack of coherence.
And that happens a lot.
And that happens more often than we
discussion.
think. And it also happens for oneself more often than you think, because sometimes you're so full of what you want to say that you're not listening at all what the other said.
And that can be out of innocent passion and goodness and
it doesn't have to be out of arrogance. It just can be passion and this is so important. But in this, you completely miss maybe that the person for you said something that changed something in the thread of the conversation, that if we miss it, something is missed in the conversation. And some point that I really like, not really like, but like to see is a conversation builds up and there's a theme happening, there's a red thread happening, there's something, wow, this is interesting, and I have something to contribute, and I really want to bring it in, and someone else jumps in and takes the conversation in a different direction, an interesting direction, a really worthy contribution, but I'm still full with what I wanted to say 5 minutes ago. And 5 minutes ago, it would be a perfect contribution to the conversation, but right now, it's out of place.
And it was so smart.
It was so smart. It was really the perfect thing to say, but it was the perfect thing to say 5 minutes ago, not right now. Am I awake enough, and am I humble enough to see that the conversation moved on, and I'm willing to be present in this point of the conversation, to create coherence that is only happening in this moment by my contribution to what is present, including what the person before me just said right now. In that capacity to respond to each other, which of course includes something we didn't make so much a point at this introduction, but it's a big point anyway, listening. Because if I don't listen, I don't know what can create coherence. My sense for coherence comes from my capacity to listen. To listen to the person before me and to listen to the whole conversation that's creating a theme, a topic, a dynamic, a direction, also a polarity, because that it can be also controversial. We will talk about this later, but in good form controversial, because it's something what I think so, no, I think so, I think so. But you can do it in a way that's really alive and not a battle. It's just really alive, finding out together. And my capacity to be aware, what is the organic whole that's forming right now? How can I create an organic contribution that can be agreeing or disagreeing, in which we ever, but it builds to the organic form of the whole, is my capacity to create cohesion on the content level.
There's also cohesion on an emotional level, and in different situations, particularly situations that are about healing, or where one is seeking to heal division between people, or all the things that need to be healed, division, shadow work. That there also is a capacity for creating, or emergence can happen when there is an emotional resonance in the group, and being aware of those shifts in the kind of emotional tone of a dialogue in a group process, being aware when, I mean, it's interesting because these things, coherence is often, it's something that is a whole body listening.
Yeah.
It's a whole human listening. I'm listening for what is said as words, but I'm also listening, feeling, sensing into where's the tension, where's the what shifts in the room when something else is brought in. How does a greater wholeness begin to open up between people? And there's often a quite an emotional component, or often an emotional component to this that is part of the intent of the group.
Yeah, and related to this emotional quality, there's something which I like to call a musical intelligence. And what I mean with the musical intelligence is every conversation, like every human interaction, has its own rhythm, has its own kind of peaks, and you can develop an ear that there's a certain rhythm right now in the conversation that you can work with. That doesn't necessarily that you have to go with the rhythm. Maybe there's a creative nuance where you have to go something different. Maybe there's even a recognition that at this point, the conversation really has to slow down. because you feel in the conversation there's a building up, like in the piece of music, there's a building up, there's a peak. And something would be wrong in the conversation, has nothing to do with the content, to go and go with the peak. Now something has to settle. There has to be a pause. And the other way around, something landed in the room. There's maybe a collective moment of recognition of something. But then the conversation has to start again. You can't just start in this moment, stop in this moment of recognition. Although it's beautiful, there's a shared something, there's a shared opening. And it would be maybe fantastic to sit there and just meditate on this until the end of the conversation. But if you want to continue the conversation, you have to make yourself free of that and make the next step. And then if somebody makes the next step, there has to be an agreement or not agreement. Yes, we take this next step. And then there's a next building up. So there's something that's really very similar, like everyone who plays an instrument knows. If you're playing classical music or even jazz or whatever, there's a harmony in all difference that is part of interaction. And in fact, that's true for any kind of conversation. There's a coherence and there's a timing, because there's a beginning of a conversation where we don't know where we go. As we started today, we just came up on screen and we don't know where we go. And then at some point, there's the middle of the conversation where you know, okay, now we are starting to move towards the end. And for example, there could be something in the very end, close to the end, which would be absolutely fantastic to bring in, but it's the end. You can't open. It's not the time to open something up again. Am I aware that we're in the process of closure, so that when we arrive at the end of our time, we can come to closure. That's a form of intelligence that we have to share. In fact, we negotiate it all the time in the conversation without saying anything about it. It's a non-verbal communication, usually, when a communication works. When it doesn't work, it doesn't work. But when it works, it's kind of fantastic. We come together, we build it up, we have a rhythm, we have our peaks, we have our moments, we have also our moments of irritation. We don't know where to go. Where are we going right now? I really, wow, this is cool. Let's go here. And then when the conversation works out, we come to closure. And to the degree that we can do this together in a creative way, not in a way where basically one gives the lead and the other just follow, but we do it in a co-creative way, a conversation can be very exciting, very alive, and very creative.
And that contains actually a lot of different elements of coherence and the building of coherence, and then it complexifying and building again, and complexifying and building again, and coming to some kind of resolution. And then the deepest way that we are coherent and is the most essential to, I think, emergence at a different level is when we're not so focused, or we're not focused simply on the content or on our emotional experience of it, but that there is this ongoing awareness of the fact that we are not separate in consciousness itself. And that is a deep form of coherence that is very related to presence, but it's not just my presence. It's the presence that it actually underlies everything. That an awareness of our being in one process together.
Exactly.
is a form of coherence that holds these other forms in a way that maximizes the potential for something new and creative to arise.
In fact, I would say this is the key to emergent dialogue. It's the recognition that what we do together is its own animal. It's its own life form. our conversation, our dialogue is its own life form. And we have to be aware to see it emerging between us, see its needs, see its potential, and be part of it. And to the degree that we have really our awareness, our sense open for this living reality that is us, but us as a whole, and has its own agenda that's different from my agenda. It has its own living reality. To the degree that we are aware of this living space becomes self-aware through us. And in that, a creative space opens up between us that is allowing to have a co-creative intelligence, that is a collective intelligence, that is feeded through our intelligence and comes together by everyone being present, being alert to this emergence of the field between us. That's why we call it sometimes field consciousness or process consciousness. And a big part, I think, to really dive into emergence dialogue is the capacity to start to sense and deepen your capacity to sense this collective field that is us on a higher level.
I like that you speak about it as a living thing, and because it's that. I think that's part of where the humility comes in, because here we are, we're very sophisticated human beings. We're living in the world. We're living complicated, complex lives. We're doing a lot, and to realize that between us there is another life form or another intelligence form that is possible. That we need to put aside our usual preoccupations often. In order to be able to kind of clear the space in ourselves, to be able to help it grow, to bring it alive, to find out what through us and through our intelligence, our experience, and who we are, it can this co-intelligence can thrive. And it when you were speaking before about being in a conversation where you where you have something that you think is extraordinary to say, and then someone else takes it in a different way, it's equally, or I find it often very uncanny when you have something that pops into your mind, or you just sort of get it from somewhere, and then the person, then someone else says the exact same thing that you were thinking. And it's like, and that happens, that kind of serendipity, that kind of synchronicity starts happening in the group, that is a sign of this deeper coherence, a sign that there is, I don't mean a sign like, the eagle crosses the sun and that means something, but it's a way of, I think a coherent way of interpreting that is that it's we may not even be fully aware of it, but there is a co-intelligence that is working with us, or that we are open to, and it is productive.
And if I may go to the third facet of our introduction, there is another form of death for this living reality between us. And this form of death is called conformity. Because if we don't find coherence, that we don't find a life form as a whole. But if this whole is basically just conformity, we don't give to this life form our individual contribution. This whole really comes alive when it's held as a whole, but with our very different contribution that also hold creative friction. And the beauty of it is there's something that could be the rise of conflict and fight. Separation, particular separation, in fact, can be held in the whole as creative friction. Because then, and that's very interesting, I find it always very interesting, contrary to what one expects, this these sweet spots where really you don't know, is this now going into separation or can we hold together? Because I really have no idea what you're talking about and I really disagree. When we have this strength, and it's a soul strength, to stay together and not denying the difference, not kind of, oh, I completely agree with you. It's so beautiful what you're saying.
That's conformity.
That's conformity. But I really disagree with what you're saying. But staying together, that in both holding the difference, in the wholeness, this friction turns into creative solutions and creative breakthroughs that are quite often the most beautiful and most powerful breakthroughs, particular because they have to be new, because they have to hold two different parts that seemingly don't go together. But in the capacity to hold it together, a third option opens up. Not always, but quite often. And that is, to my understanding, also the quite powerful creative capacity of emergent dialogues, which needs a lot of us, of every single one of us, because that's where everything is triggered. My pride is triggered because I really think what you say is stupid. Your pride is triggered because you really think what I say is stupid. Or I'm intimidated by you and I don't want to speak, or whatever. All kind of things can happen to separate. But to find a way to not separate and respect the shared space in its creative dynamics allows something to happen that is beyond every single one of us. And it's really this creative friction that makes emergent dialogue in the end really emergent. Because the emergence, when we come together, by opening the screens that I shared in beginning, I mean, it's powerful, but it's just a starting point. It hasn't bear fruit yet. When we're able to stay together, in particular stay together when it's not easy to stay together, because I really don't want to stay together, because or whatever. But there's the big-heartedness, the interest, the curiosity, and also, again, the humility to do this, and also the courage to go somewhere together. Something emerges. There's, how did we get here? I never thought this thought before. That's quite astounding. And it happens more often than not. I really believe also in the power of collective thinking. I really think that if we put our smarts together, we are more intelligent. It's very simple. And I think we have to learn dialogues forms that allow to put our smarts together to do this. And I think to hold this creative friction is one way how to do it.
And it's interesting because, again, when we talk about facets of emergent dialogue, a facet, if you look at it at a jewel, a facet you can see through and see the other facets. But this creative friction, this is why that the thought, oh, this isn't going the way I thought it should go. You know, like I want to be in another conversation. I want to be in another dialogue. I'm not present to this one because this isn't the way it's supposed to be. That when we go into that place, that opportunity for creative friction, and it's often you at those moments that you go, oh man, I wish I were someplace else, and you start to think yourself someplace else. That loses the opportunity for being present, holding this coherence, this whole, despite the kind of the pool of difference and different views, different perspectives, different perspectives. In holding that, what can come out of it is something that you don't know already. It's not. I remember one person said, this emergence, but we didn't speak like in another language or something. And it's like, no, we're going to use English, and that's there are many more languages that are much more sophisticated than English. So we're stuck with that at the moment. But in English together, we're going to be finding through this creative friction coming out of coherence and our being present. We're going to find ways that find points or ways that polarities and things that feel oppositional have a different kind of integration. And that's a very, very powerful thing, because the modern thinking, and I mean that in terms of the modern era, is so binary, is so black and white, on or off, up or down, raw or cooked, to bring in famous anthropologist, that these things that we have that divide us, black and white, male or female, can reach a different coherence, integration, and creative drive through this process. But as you see, it takes something. It's not these take something from me for sure. These things are kind of go against the grain of how we're taught to be individual selves. It requires holding our experience in a deeper container that holds this whole, and being willing to hear and experience both things that don't jive with our usual way of seeing and thinking and being, and to allow this. Someone in the chat said something about we stay together for the sake of the baby we're co-creating. Thanks, James. But we want that baby to grow and to have life. And there's a birth process in this. There's a real process that is often uncomfortable. Mm. But the result and the possibility that it opens for us as human beings at this point, where we're so despairing of whether or not we're going to be able to come together and make things happen or meet beyond our differences. That realizing that there is a potentiality that comes from us together that doesn't exist in ourselves singly, individually, is an incredibly powerful lesson, I think, and it's very confirming of life itself in that.
And it's a potentiality that comes out of the emergent process itself. Mm. I don't bring this potentiality in, and it relates to what you said a little earlier. There are moments that's usually more a mistake someone makes who has a little experience in this. Sometimes in our facilitator training, these mistakes come up. It doesn't come up in the very beginning. What you mentioned, that you have to be in the conversation we are in and not in the conversation you want to be in. It seems a very trivial sentence, but there's a lot in it. In fact, it holds all three aspects. It holds the presence, it holds the coherence, and it holds the creative friction. Because I have to listen, what is the potentiality of our shared time right now? And maybe I have an idea, oh really, I wanted to do something completely different, and where I'm here, and and particularly when you think you have some experience, then you want to drive the process and make it happen, what you think should really happen here. And basically you're just bringing your agenda into this creative emergence. And as a side result, you are an obstacle to the potentiality of the creative emergence itself, because there's something emerging that is not under my control. What's happening between us here on this call is not under my control. It's emergent between us. And my being helpful for this can only happen if I'm really somehow sensing what is it that really wants to happen here. And if it's something very different than I had in mind, but still that's the real potential of where we are, am I there for this? And that means I have to give up a lot of ideas, what should happen, and be very present to what can happen really right now. And to the degree that we come together in this, the potentiality of our conversation really explodes because we are there for it. But it needs our presence, it needs our coherence, and it needs our creative friction in all of that.
Which means ourselves.
Ourselves, exactly.
Great. I think, and yes, it was Claude Levi-Strauss. Well, we're on the cooked. But whose name I half got when I said that. Thank you. So I think, I mean, it's funny. I find it a little awkward to be speaking about this in this way because we see you and we don't have a chance to engage with you, but we wanted to, in some ways, download, which isn't. I mean, there's something emerging between the two of us. There are things that we've never said before to each other about this process. But still, it's
just between the two of us.
Right. And wanting to be with you in this kind of engagement, in some ways, is what this what our upcoming course is all about. And we're going to open invite you to open the lines very soon. In terms of what we want to create in our 3-month course is a practicum, is a learning lab for all of what we've been speaking about, and that it is and it requires because it requires all of us. We can't have emergent dialogue with. I mean, that's why we do most of our work together. It's because it just doesn't make any sense to talk about dialogue as a single head, or a single being. Anyway, I think what I'd like to do is open up to hear your comments, your questions. I don't know where we will go. You may have questions about the course. You may have questions about things that we just said now. Let's, love to hear from you. So can we open everyone's?
So what I would like to do right now is that I open all mics, but that comes with the request on your side that you mute your mics, because otherwise we will have a lot of noises after I did it on the lower left corner. And then when you speak, open your mic, and when you stop speaking, just mute your mic again. So then I'll leave it to you. So what I will do right now is to open all mics, and then basically we have a free forum here.
Now you can hear me.
Okay.
So now mute yourself. Yeah.
Please.
Thank you.
On the lower left corner, you have this microphone where you can mute yourself when you're not speaking, and unmute yourself when you're speaking. And otherwise, here we are.
Yeah. So questions, comments.
You're right.
Well, hi, this is Savannah. I'll jump right in because I'm very talented at putting my hand out. I offer two things to the group. One, I put in the chat a book about growing a conversation, which helps become more aware of what you might be doing naturally. And the other thing, I've run mini circles, so I offer to the group what I find changes the energy in the room. I learned from Native American dialogue, and everybody closes their eyes for about 20 seconds. And they visualize being around a fire in a circle in the woods, day or night, up to them, and try to see each other's spirit, so to speak. And it really changes the energy in the room and creates trust by slowing down and coming together. So I offer that if of any interest. I very much agree with everything we've discussed. It's very inspiring because I always feel these conversations are reciprocal. Thank you for listening, and I'm complete.
Thanks, Savannah.
Hi, I'm Deborah.
Hi, Deborah.
Hey, Deborah.
I just wanted to say, I mean, the minute you came on, the quality, whatever you do for your own work, the quality is so palpable. I just felt so much love and coherence and presence. I felt like I was just being pulled completely into being totally here with not even being able to be distracted by anything else. I'm like very excited to take this course because I mean the content and what you shared about the ways you look at this is interesting, but I thought these people are really doing this thing they're talking about. So I just want to thank you.
Thanks, Deborah.
Thank you.
That's very kind. I mean, we've been working on this for 20 years, and it's been quite an experiment.
And it still is.
It absolutely still is. I mean, all of the work that we do is really experimental. We go to the edge of what we know, we offer that, and then we co-create the next steps together. And this isn't an intellectual pursuit. It can't be. But thank you very much.
This is James. This is a great conversation. It seems to me that there's also an important element in the initiating intention, the seed that brings people together and creates the willingness to be present together and to co-create together. And the formulation and communication and outreach around that initial intention, planting that seed, seems to be an important component as well.
Absolutely. I think that's one of the things we want to go into deeply in the course, because intention is a one can have an intention that one is conscious of, and there can be other intentions, motivations, so forth, that are working in oneself that goes against that explicit intention. And to really recognize how profound human intention is. And I find it beautiful in doing this work that people who come together, like all of you here, you're here because you want something like this. You know it. You've had intuitions. You may even be practicing some aspects of this. But it's like you recognize the need to go further. There's a deep intention around that, and that is a very, very precious thing. A very precious thing, and necessary to create the coherence that we're talking about.
Yeah, because on one hand, what you're saying, James, is true for someone who wants to hold and create a course like this. Because a big part, I think, of what we try to do is also be a space holder for something. And there's an intention to hold something. But in the same way, it's completely dependent on every participant. Something that makes this form of dialogue so powerful, but also so vulnerable at the same time, that we are completely codependent on each other. There has to be a collective intention. It doesn't have to be everyone, but there has to be kind of a gravity point forming around a certain intention that really allows this space to open up. When this gravity point on this intention is not happening in the shared space, very simple, the conversation won't happen. So, of course, there's something you can hold as a space holder, but there's only so much you can do with this. In the end, this is a co-creative emergence that is completely dependent on every single one of us. And to mold this together is the art of doing this. So I couldn't agree more.
And also, we're going to speak in the course about the different contexts that you find yourself in. Because what you were just referring to, and I think what James, what you were referencing is how do you really take a group and really through shared intention, how can you, what can you really create out of that? But often we find ourselves at work and we want to create something more creative at work, or we have a discussion group or a salon that we're hosting or something. And what do we do? How do we act as kind of agents to support emergence in situations where everyone may not share this deep intention? And that's one thing that we want to explore also in this course. It depends so much on us and where we're coming from. And when we don't have buy-in at the deepest level from others, how do we work buy-in at maybe more content levels that then can serve for, that then we can work with to create emergence, even in situations where people aren't all aligned like this.
Yeah, in fact, it's great that you're bringing this in, because what you're referring to, in fact, two very different applications of this form of dialogue, and one is really, as you put it, when there's a shared buy-in, when we are together on the deepest level, do this together. There's a certain dialogue that's really possible. It's basically what we talked about. But there are enough circumstances in our life where you just don't have the buy-in, because you are in circumstances, let's say in a work circumstance or in private circumstances, where there is just not a cohesion on that, because people want something different, and it's fair enough. But even in that different circumstances, one can be a conscious change agent in this kind of conversation by holding something into this other conversation that allows something very different to emerge than if nobody would be present in this conversation. These two conversations are very different because one is much more co-created than the other, but the first one is the training field that also allows our own soul strength and our dialogue capacity to really hold very difficult other communication situations.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Oh, and we have a hand up. I think it's, yeah. Shayla? I don't know if it's Shayla has her hand up or her partner, friend.
It'd be her partner.
Okay,
right.
There we go. Okay.
I'm very much enjoying this conversation, and I understand some of the work because of my own connection with this. One of the things that occurs to me is how the conversation, the emergent conversation, becomes aware of itself. Because I understand the matter of intention and making the field coherent.
Yeah.
But how the whole collective becomes aware of itself in a way that fuels the emergence. So that there is a consciousness of process along with the content that's emerging.
That's right. That's right.
Was this are you just stating that, or was this also kind of a question?
It is a question as to how you hold that in terms of building this whole process.
Yeah. I mean, my response to this would be, it starts with my own recognition that I am not really separate from the process as a whole. In the moment, or as long as I hold myself as a separate individual, I look from the outside to this process. But in the moment that I start to see, I don't have to look from the outside to this process. This process is not really separate from myself.
Yes.
And in the moment that not only I do this, but also you and I do this.
And so does James, and so does Savannah, and so does Deborah, and so does Margaret, then something happens.
Then I would say that's the moment of the process becoming self-conscious. Through us.
Yes.
Through us recognizing that we are not really separate. Because that's quite a spiritual point of us, because in this, when I recognize I'm not separate of this dialogue process here right now, and you recognize that you're not separate from this dialogue process, we also recognize that I and you are not really separate.
Right.
That doesn't take anything away from our individuality. That's true also. But there's another, maybe even deeper part, that is one process that is emerging through our individuality.
But it is, as an individual, I make a profound choice to identify myself more with this process that is happening right now than with my own thoughts and ideas and emotional experience and so forth. I invest something through a deep care and identification with this process. It's like the baby that we're caring about isn't just the baby out there. The baby is me, is us. It is this, and I care about that. And it's in that there's something that begins to move at a different level of self-awareness.
I can feel that in my body even. Let me just pass you to my partner.
Shayla.
That was really, really beautiful. What you just articulated, Elizabeth. And
I can't hear you. Sorry, can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
And it feels to me like that edge that you just described, where I'm not suppressing my own individuality, because that doesn't work. That's where I avoid the creative friction, right?
Yeah.
But when I actually feel that I'm not separate from the process, when I feel that in my body, then this deep care, which is a much deeper level of responsibility, starts to emerge in me,
Right.
and also in the whole group. And that's an amazing thing to be a part of.
That's right.
Yeah.
And I love that you just presence that. It's just so moving.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really, really grateful to be here today.
Thank you. I'm grateful that you're here and that you're all here and you're all engaging. It's very touching.
Hello. Hi. Hi guys. I just I wanted to fill out this idea of when something becomes self-conscious between us. I don't know, fill that out or explore something, but isn't there a sense that when it's the most self-conscious between us that we forget ourselves and we forget that we're in it together in a way. So in a way it starts to operate through us, and just that sense, that the irony really, I guess, of how, we can understand the mechanics of how dialogue works in a way that's, very sophisticated. And yet when we really feel like it happens, it's when we forget all the rules, and it's all just flowing through us. We forget ourselves. We forget something, and yet I don't want to say that we become unaware of the process itself, but the attention is so much on the emergence, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I think the irony there, and I thought it's kind of significant.
It's interesting because we do lose ourselves in the best possible way. And at the same time, it's our individuality, our knowledge, our sensitivities, become highlighted. or are given in a way, like what then happens with me forgetting myself is different than what happens with you forgetting yourself, because you are a different human being. So there's an interesting way that one is more at home and more able to be kind of used in this way that is unique, and yet it's not self-conscious in that old way.
Exactly. And there's another irony to it that I really find puzzling. It was Shayla and her partner. I don't know your name. What you brought up, that you can feel this in your body.
Mm.
Mm-hmm.
There's an irony. If you just kind of be aware of, we're sitting here, I don't know how many thousand kilometers apart, all together, just on a screen. And something is emerging between us, basically mediated through pixels on the screen and waves from a loudspeaker. And there seems to be a process in consciousness that my body responds to as a form of recognition. What's happening? What's happening right now is not separate from my body experience.
Mm-hmm.
I really find it puzzling, and at the same time, we don't have the time right now. Very worthwhile to pursue what does this mean, that this is the case, because you're not having an intellectual discussion right now. We're having something that really goes deep into our body sensual recognition of a life process as a human species.
Yeah.
I find it fascinating.
Mm. Mm. I think life process is it's an exploration of aliveness, of aliveness not as an idea but as an enactment, as us, as life process.
Well, and we've talked about this before, but that is almost a guide, isn't it? In terms of where that body sense, that sense of what is the most alive in this conversation. What is it because as we experience this together, we feel more alive in ourselves, and so in a sense that is an indicator of where to go next in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Great.
I wanted to.
Can you expand on that very broad thought, where to go next?
Savannah, Diane just wanted to say something. Sorry.
That's okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Savannah. Yeah, I'm really noticing. When you, Elizabeth, and Thomas were talking, I had you on the speaker, the main view. And I was looking at your faces. I was so just captured by everything that was being said. And I'm realizing there's something, I'm very conditioned to be face to face and to be, in a circle and paying attention very carefully to the people who are speaking, and all my senses are, my human, my body, everything is geared to do that. And then when we come back on the bigger screen where I can see everybody, I'm having a more difficult time doing that. But I really appreciate Thomas, you just reminding us every once in a while, like you did at the beginning, like when we are here together, we are here in this moment together. And there's something, like you were saying in your presentation, that emerges in that space when we can keep that presence, like you were saying, that just be here, and not lose it, not start getting distracted by, I don't know, all the other things that are in my visual field, you know, I might do better just to even close my eyes sometimes, you know, to listen, because I get so distracted. And when I'm not, I certainly do feel that human, beautiful connection and that deeper listening that's present, you know, through me somehow, listening, wanting to connect, you know. I really appreciate your presentation, and there's many parts of it that just really, I'm going to take time and really be more aware of things like the cohesion you're talking about. Just, there's so many wonderful things you've said, and I just wanted to say that before it's time to say goodbye.
Thanks, Diane.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, hi, I'm Irina and I'm from Germany.
Oh,
And hi, I think I'm the only one from Germany besides Thomas and Elizabeth at this moment, I guess.
You think so?
And so I joined a little bit late, maybe 5 minutes later, 10 minutes later, and maybe I didn't get, you know, the initial thing, but I'm a bit surprised because, you know, my imagination about a global dialogue was different, you know, and now I see it's all about emerging, what I find very interesting, and yeah, so it's just for me like at this moment the question, what has it to do with global? Because global for me is like, you know, this global village is a global, it's an economic, very disruptive, you know, thing for me. And right now I'm in a flat of a friend of mine, and we just have a Syrian refugee here, and I already gave him like German lessons today, and they have a lot of difficulties here. So it's you know, so I'm very much in this field right now, and we have been speaking in this afternoon with other friends about you know, a real, you know, how to transform society, because of what we are living here now in Germany, very new situation.
No,
So has it got to do anything?
You're completely right. In fact, our global dialogue lab is exactly about what you are talking. What we try to do here right now, talking about the principles of emergence dialogue, is talking about the form of dialogue that is beyond or underneath how we want to approach this global dialogue. So what we are talking about here is basically, so which form of dialogue allows this global dialogue to happen? But what we tried to do today was not the global dialogue. The global dialogue has also, as you said, to talk about the real issues. It's just basically how to come together. I mean, as you see, I'm very excited about coming together and emergence and all of that. But I'm also very excited about talking about the real issues.
And our next our global dialogues happen once a month, usually on the first Friday night in Germany of every month. Next time it's happening on the second Friday with Lema Gumboy, who is the 2011 Nobel Peace Prize winner. Or she and 2 other women got the Nobel Peace Prize in 2011. So that's one part of our work. And as Thomas said, it's like, so the question we've been asking, or actually it would work the other way around. It's how do you hold unity and diversity? How do you not make diversity have to flatten out so everyone's the same and holds hands and we're all friends and there's no difference, and we pretend to not see differences that are very real and very important? And how do we then highlight difference or be able to go into difference without conflict and breaking apart? Can we hold unity underneath difference? Can we hold, can we recognize that there is difference underneath unity? That's the foundation of this work. And what this work, this particular dialogue work is about creating that kind of space. And it's part of what we try to work with in the Global Dialogue Lab. But that's an open forum, and it's much more woo, wild than a group of people who, as James was saying before, have an intention to come together in order to learn how to work this way.
Which you also have to respect, because people who are coming on the Global Dialogue Lab, they're not necessarily coming to learn about emergent dialogue. They're coming, their interest is really more the focus of the real issue, so to say, although this is also a real issue. It's just on a different level, a real issue. And this also has to be respected. But the way we are thinking also about the need for new activism is that we also have to cultivate new forms of coming together. And this course is really very much about how we think we can cultivate this on a consciousness level that can hold diversity, also the diversity between cultures, races, classes,
gender,
so that we can come together in recognition that, and that's quite a recognition, that in spite of all these differences, we are one process.
Mm-hmm.
If you can call this one process humanity, if you call this process Gaia, or if you call this process cosmos, that's at different levels of the whole thing, but we are one process.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I got a second question because I'm part of a Bohmsche Dialog group. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the others are, if it's familiar to you. And it seemed to me a little bit like that. It has differences, but I can't grasp them really right now. Could you clarify that for me, please? I think you're acquainted with it.
I think that our from what I understand, because I've done a very little bit of Bohmian dialogue, and of course read his book. It's a beautiful book on dialogue. But we have had people in our training who have great deal of experience with Bohmian dialogue. And I think that what I understand is the difference that they report back is our emphasis on the intersubjective. And this the living field consciousness that comes from a shift in identification in ourselves, and that is different from what it is that it creates something different than the process that Bohm set up.
Okay, got it. Yeah.
And also, I would say we understand our work very much also in continuation and in dialogue with the work of Bohm and Martin Buber, by the way. So that the different forms of dialogue out there, there's a lot of experience. And what we are doing is just our contribution to the field and our own learning process that definitely is building on what Bohm did, what Buber did, and what others do. There's a lot happening right now, and this is just one place where it's also happening. That's all.
And we have our particular iteration of it, furtheration of it, whatever. But, and isn't that amazing? I mean, that talk about being one process. It's like here we are, humanity, and these forms of dialogue in certain parts of the noosphere, people are talking about we spaces, these different forms of collectivity that are not like hippie communes 50 years ago, but are new ways of working together that are aiming to tap something beyond a group of individuals being together, but are looking to tap into a greater intelligence through this process, through some way of being together as human beings.
Okay, great. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
will there be a recording of that? Because I'd like, to forward it to friends or so, because I think it was not very known.
Yeah, we're going to send a recording of tonight to today, this morning, wherever you are, to everyone.
Oh, that's great. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that unless there's something burning out there, I think that should brings us to an end. Thank you so much for being with us. I really appreciate it. It's beautiful to see you, and I hope we'll have a chance to work together.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thanks very much.
Yeah.
Bye now.
Bye.
Bye.